do we do? You know, where do we go? And who do we ask for help? Our government?
Marijuana is not a medicine. Marijuana is an addictive substance.
I have the right to make up my mind how I'm going to die.
A smoked weed is not medicine.
It's a God-given gift.
The United States is lagging behind other modern societies.
Marijuana does not cure anything at all.
I have this plant that grows. It's a weed. It's just a plant. And but everyone's making such a fuss over it. I know I'm here today because I've smoked pot.
This is really serious. I was, you know, on the floor, throwing up, diarrhea, severe pain. This was not about obeying the law or disobeying the law. This was about saving my life.
All this is resting on the false premise that marijuana is a cure-all medicine.
How can I deny what I've seen and experienced?
I appreciate that they believe that they receive benefit, but the science doesn't necessarily support that.
I've had an experience where I see that my life is enriched by a simple plant. Then what kind of, you know, what's the argument?
Right now there really is no evidence to support the use of marijuana for any medical purposes.
I'm doing this to save my life. I'm doing this to be a healthier person. I'm doing this so that I can survive and be here to be a contributing member of society.
There's a big difference in medicine between feeling better and actually becoming better.
I knew that marijuana had been a help to me, so helping other people to grow their own, to me, it was a very patriotic thing.
The position of the federal government, it is not legal to possess, grow, or take marijuana in any state in this nation.
If I have to go all the way to the Supreme Court, so be it. I'm willing to go that route. I feel that this is the least I can do.
Federal government, get off the back of those states that have used their legal process to have a limited use of marijuana for medical purposes.
It is a travesty for the federal government to send police into my state and arrest people and throw them in a cage in jail for doing something that the people, the vast majority of people in my state, voted to make a legal practice. This is contrary to American tradition. This is not right.
To ask federal law enforcement to look the other way in some states, but not others, is unfair and probably unconstitutional selective enforcement of a law.
A conservative reading of the Constitution would indicate that this is a situation where the states ought to make these kinds of determinations for themselves.
That's an easy one. It should be only a state issue.
We've turned this into a monster to the point where we won't even allow a person dying from cancer and AIDS to get a little bit of relief.
It does not help sick people.
Let's reflect again on how cynical and how dark it is to even contemplate sending someone to prison for a year when they may not even have that much time left in their life.
Are we compassionate or are we not?
His point would be well taken if indeed there were medical evidence that medicinal marijuana helped people, but there is none.
The FDA has not considered or approved marijuana for this use.
The federal government has made a mistake, not only here with marijuana, with all the drug laws. Let me tell you.
We need a revolution. We need a revolution in ideas.
All of a sudden you run into a situation where the medicine is not working, you know, and you can't get any relief. What do? You know, you're vomiting, nauseated, or you just, you know, you just can't sleep, nothing's working, and all of a sudden you know, somebody said something, oh, marijuana. I was diagnosed with cancer prostate cancer that's metastasized to my bones, back, vertebrae, both sides of the pelvis, and rib cage.
Dan will die of prostate cancer at some point. We're going on 6 years of working together. He has done amazingly well with the disease. The average person with recurrent prostate cancer lives about 3 years.
It was time for radiation for my treatment, you know, and I discovered that the drug they gave for to stop the nausea was Marinol.
We have, in fact, isolated the active ingredient from marijuana, and it is available in a pill form to physicians to prescribe to their patients as Marinol.
I was just getting sick off of it. One of the nurses suggested that maybe I'd try some marijuana. She said it seems to work. I did, it worked, and so I had a tool that I knew something about that eventually I'm using it to this day right now. One of the things that I'm a little bit worried about or nervous today is like, you know, am I going to hear another one of those predictions? Am I going to hear like, you know, you have like 18 months and get your stuff ready? Or am I going to hear the same thing that I've been hearing for a while? It's kind of just not doing anything, but doing something.
I go into these offices.
So, how were you this week?
Fine.
Fine? Your scan was good.
Really?
Yeah, so remarkably, we're very happy to say, no changes whatsoever. Actually, your the x-rays that they took from the bone scan just show arthritis.
Oh my God. I have arthritis.
So, they didn't see anything that looked like there was active prostate cancer. We've only had you on the hormonal shots at this point. There's a pretty good likelihood that the pills that we got you should be able to control things. Did you have a chance to start them yet?
I started the pills. Actually, I brought them with me. These are nasty.
You started taking them 2 a day?
2 a day.
Okay.
And the first 2 days, extremely nauseous. I was just barfing like.
Really? That's okay. Are you taking anything for the nausea?
What I usually use is a little bit of marijuana.
Mm-hmm. And does that seem to have controlled?
Yeah, I just take a couple of puffs of medical marijuana, and it's maybe 2 minutes, something like that. You can feel the change, and it does work. It stops.
And you've been able to tolerate the medicine since then?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. So, I mean, overall, honestly, with regards to the fact of how long you've had this disease, the fact you've had it show up in your bones before, the fact that we're not seeing any signs of it there now, while it's not anything that's going to go away completely, I think that given the circumstances, things are going to be hopefully pretty well controlled.
Perfect. I like it.
Okay.
Take care, y'all. That works.
I would imagine still to measure his prognosis in terms of years. Yeah.
I'm just shocked. I cannot believe the ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster ride. And this one here, I started with my PSA just spiking up and then going for the bone scan and just feeling like everything was really nasty and coming here expecting the worst and getting the best.
I'm so happy.
Mm. I was walking through a park near town, and I think it was an arts fair, and there was a table there, and it was WHAM, Women's Alliance for Medical Marijuana. I went to one of their meetings just to find out what was going on. I've been with WHAM for a long time. Met a lot of people, you know, and lost a lot of people too.
My experience with so many people who have died, it's undeniable relief. It's just undeniable relief. In 1973, I was in a car accident. I suffered a brain trauma that began a bout of epilepsy, and sometimes I'd have as many as 5 grand mal seizures a day.
It was just a lot of violent shaking, drooling. I don't really. It's a bad memory.
I was often hospitalized, generally monthly. It's kind of a prison of sorts.
All of my time was spent around her seizure activity.
Mike read in a medical journal in the early 70s about a successful treatment using marijuana on laboratory-induced seizures in rats.
It was unbelievable to think about how simple it is to control her seizures now. I thought we have nothing to lose. It had gotten so bad.
We cultivated marijuana for my own personal use, and what I found within a very short time is I started to get a handle on the seizures. I could control the onset of the seizure.
We would put joints in every room of the house, so no matter where she was, if she started to have seizure activity, I could light a joint, stick it in her mouth, and get her to inhale.
We just couldn't even believe that it was possible, that it could work.
Well, finally got to a point where Valerie could drive a car again, I could leave her alone, you know, it changed our lives.
The kind of freedom, if you can imagine, being able to go in the bathroom and shut the door and take a bath all by yourself. It was amazing. And if you're part of your process, answering your own need by creating your own medicine, gosh, you know, it feels incredible. We were arrested in our home for the cultivation of marijuana by the Sheriff's Department.
We made the front page of the Santa Cruz Sentinel. We started getting phone calls from people in Santa Cruz County saying, hey, how can I do what you guys do? This is great. You know, I've tried marijuana for my cancer, or for my AIDS, or for my whatever, and but I can't, it's too expensive, I can't buy it. What can I do?
Okay, here's one thing. Now, I wanted to ask you about this idea. People come to WHAM initially because they need access to medical marijuana, and they don't usually have very much money. They have very little, because one of the first things after your health goes is your financial status.
The first year there may have been 10, 15 people, and then each year it's just more and more phone calls, more and more people, bigger and bigger organization.
So the way you get into WHAM is through attrition. You know, if people die and we have enough medicine, then there's a door that opens.
And we want to talk about what's going on.
There's a twofold thing that we're doing here. One is that we create a community that allows people to help themselves and help each other.
I think it was either 1 or 2 days after Proposition 215 was passed, our nonprofit papers were stamped by the Secretary of State of California.
We use many different products. Tincture, we use capsules, we use a topical solution that you rub on, we use baked goods, and the smoke.
When I first came here, they didn't think I was going to live. Well, I fooled them.
Just up the rest, a little more.
So now this is the way that I can give back to what they have given me. They've given my life back to me. Wham has made it so that I could endure 2 rounds of chemotherapy, 1 round of radiation. We're just a small group of very sick people that just want to keep each other as well as we can for as long as we can. We're helping people through the end stages of their life. And whatever we can do to make it more comfortable and let them ease out with honor, we're going to do it.
That's what it's about. That's totally what it's about. Just one of these muffins, somebody feel better, I feel better. It's all worth it. I'll go to jail for it.
My good friend who died last Tuesday, I remember when I first met her, she was so sick. I was holding her head and she looked up at me and she said, I can't take it anymore. I don't even want to be alive. And she had, at the time, a young son. And I said, well, you know, I can understand your suffering. I can see it. Do you want to try this? And she said, okay. She took one puff, and in moments, she looked up at me and she said, I cannot believe it. And then she said, I know. And then she said this is funny. She said, I know, you've been telling me. And from that moment, that was 10 years ago, from that moment on, she used very judiciously, but it helped her. She was able to meet the love of her life and to be married and to live a really good life, helping other people.
It is not about compassion. The FDA has not considered or approved marijuana for this use.
Our experience has proven to us that this is a medicine that's valuable and simple and free.
An individual or few individuals' claims does not equate to good science. It needs to be studied to make sure there's no adverse outcome.
A lot of people know that marijuana has medical value. It's very obvious.
We don't need it as a medication in that form. A smoked weed is not medicine.
I've seen it time and time again, not just in WHAM members, but just people in general that use marijuana for medicine.
If it were just my own experience, I might question whether or not it would be an applicable avenue for anybody else. Surely, you know, how could I say this will work for you?
There's no science to suggest, one, that what the people are taking the marijuana for is any better than what's already available, and two, that they may not be harming some other part of their body.
I'm not saying that marijuana is going to cure anyone or cure anything, and I don't even think that probably one of us believes that. The only thing we're asking for is the right to choose our own treatment for our own illnesses. It was about 7 a.m. on September 5th, 2002.
It's like what you see on television.
I heard loud noises and stomping, and I immediately jumped out of bed thinking it's the federal government, the DEA.
The DEA executed a search warrant on the residence of Mr. and Mrs. Corral, which was also the headquarters for WHAM.
I looked out the window and I could see 5 or 6 guys in full SWAT gear with automatic weapons. They had the battering ram for the door. And I knew right away what it was.
Just blurted out, "What are you doing in my home? Get out."
They were inside the house and they were just screaming, "Get down, get down, get down, get down here, get down." And I started yelling back at them, "I'm nonviolent, this is medical marijuana, just stay calm, I'm coming down the stairs, there's no reason to get worked up, just everybody stay calm, I'm not going to resist."
When we execute a search warrant, we're a little bit more alert. We don't know what's on the other side of the other door, we don't know how the other person is going to react.
They turned weapons on me, and I was in my pajamas. They yelled at me, "Get down, get down, get down," really loudly.
As soon as I got to the bottom of the stairs, I was hit in the face with floodlight, or some bright light.
We were prepared to deal with any situation and to take control of the premises and the occupants.
I dropped to my knees, and then if there was somebody put a hand behind my head and pushed me face down to the floor.
There were 3 there with guns on me, and there were 4 more out, just outside.
My hands were pulled behind my back and I was handcuffed. And while I was laying there, I could see the barrel of an automatic about, that far from my left eye.
And then one came behind me and pushed me to the ground face down, and then put something in my back and put something to my head. And interestingly enough, it was right to the place where I had my brain trauma. I started to tell him about WHAM. I started to tell him about the mistake that he was making, that we're not drug dealers, that we're just a group of patients, that what that garden represents is people's lives, people suffering, and to please not take it, to call whoever he needed to call the sheriff, to find out who we are.
The agents searched the premises and seized 167 plants of marijuana.
It's a lifetime of work together, in our, but the government could take it like that.
The total weight of the 167 plants that were seized was approximately 2,600 pounds.
To come into people's homes with loaded weapons and with a kind of, full frontal assault is a dangerous thing, and you could kill somebody, and much, much more dangerous than marijuana could ever be.
We're committed to do our job in a compassionate and a professional way. We do this job because we like it and we believe in the mission. I joined DEA in March of 1988, and I went to the DEA Academy in Quantico, Virginia. And my first post of duty was in Miami, Florida. I was transferred to Bogota, Colombia from July of '94 through September of 1998. When I was transferred to the San Francisco Field Division. The most stressful for me personally was in Colombia. 4 individuals, one of them with an Uzi, another one with a .38, tried to kidnap me and get me in their car. I resisted their attempts to kidnap me, and I was able to escape. And thankfully, they did not shoot me. This was usually the size of the team, when we went to do the operations. When I was in Colombia, I used to go to funerals every month. And every time I went to a funeral, it was, 3 or 4 cops I had been killed in the line of duty. one of those patrols, we found a boat that was that had a load of marijuana, and they just threw the bales out into the water, and they took off. And this was some of the marijuana that we recovered from that boat. It was marijuana of Jamaican origin. We seized marijuana from people claiming to be involved in the medical marijuana movement. These are threatened letters that I received, and the times I received it were shortly after we either arrested people that support Proposition 215, medical marijuana, or when we conducted search warrants at their premises and seized marijuana. And the letter says, Richard Meyer, you talk and act like the person whose picture is enclosed. You prick. Are you ready to rumble? You're going to be reminded of this often. You're being watched and logistically evaluated. We know who your personnel are. We know where they live. We know where you live. Watch out for the day when there will be an event in your lives. The little I see in here is probably, again, from somebody that thinks that marijuana should be legalized. I get those letters frequently. Also, I've received telephone calls, threatened telephone calls, and they're all by backers of the medicinal marijuana, the so-called, compassionate people, supposedly. I'm glad I don't believe in hell, so, Yeah, I take it seriously. I've been threatened before. I've been assaulted before, so I do take it seriously. But am I scared? No. It annoys me more than it scares me. If this person is trying to make me quit the EA, that's not going to happen. Some of you, since all of you really work undercover, it's better to preserve your identity. Your face is not going to be shown. In my experience, let me tell you, I've been probably like you guys, maybe I've been through hundreds of raids, and in every one, as we're about to knock on the door and go through the door, let me tell you, my heart is racing. We have agents that have been attacked on what we call knock and talk. Where we go to our residents, knock on the door, and we just want to talk to the people inside to interview somebody or to clarify something.
There's always the one where they say there's just one person home, and you kick the door down, and there's 15 people in the house, and people are diving out of windows, and there's guns all over the place.
You can easily get hurt, or worse, you can lose, people.
It's a very dynamic thing. It's a lot of noise and a lot of yelling, and the whole idea is that we do that as quickly and kind of in an overpowering way so that we can basically freeze the scene as quickly as possible and get control, and then everything calms down and we're everybody's friends.
The mission of the DEA is to enforce the Controlled Substances Act. According to the CSA, marijuana is a Schedule I substance, and what that means is that marijuana has no accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. The way it stands right now, marijuana it's illegal. And marijuana is illegal because the doctors and the scientists say that it's a dangerous drug.
It's a harmful drug.
The problem is that from the public health perspective, that you're not really treating the problem, you're treating the pain associated with the problem. And there are FDA-approved drugs which give you the same relief from the pain that you're feeling from a lot of the symptoms.
A few good doses of aspirin probably is going to give you, or Vicodin is probably going to give you a better, more managed pain relief than smoking a joint.
As far as the DEA is concerned, Proposition 215 is in direct conflict with federal law.
It seems to be very easy to get these cards, these Prop 215 cards. It's more of an excuse for these younger people to have the marijuana in their possession, in their vehicles or in their house, and then they can say, oh, I have a card, and then, hey, we're federal government, we don't recognize the card.
Quite frankly, you'd be crazy in a sense not to petition for a medical marijuana caregiver's license to grow marijuana, because you get a lot of protections from the state government that you wouldn't have otherwise.
I don't know how many times we've come across criminals that once we've raided a grow site and then they're holding up their Prop 215 cards. A lot of people, especially the way the law is written here in California, it's easy for anybody to sign up. And I mean, your kids can say they're growing medical marijuana, or any criminal can.
There's no accountability, and there's no statewide, there's no regulation, cross-county about, well, in Humboldt County, it's okay to grow X amount of plants. In Sonoma County, it's not okay to grow that same amount. So there's just so many different variations on what is appropriate statewide that it's just absolutely impossible to enforce on the state level.
It's kind of like the Wild West out there sometimes. I mean, there's no controls. You kind of have to scratch your head and wonder how does this conflict happen? We're running into people that have thousands of plants that claim that they're helping sick people, but there's a big disconnect there between reality and what they say they're doing.
So you see the full spectrum. I don't think you can just say, well, just because someone is growing medical marijuana, they're a compassionate and peaceful person that you don't have to worry about. I don't think I've ever arrested anybody that's been sick with HIV or has cancer or anything like that. I think what you see most of the time when people are card-carrying medical marijuana recipients, what you see is I've got a bum knee, or I can't sleep, or one of my favorites is I've got asthma. So, I mean, that's what you see 99% of the time.
If this were really about people that were sick or dying, it wouldn't be this messed up. It wouldn't be a hokey arrangement. I don't think personally any of us really care if someone who's sick or dying uses marijuana. I mean, we're not dealing with at that level of society. We're dealing with as law enforcement, we're dealing with real bad guys that are selling drugs and dealing drugs.
I think the argument too that they make is, if your mother was sick and dying and marijuana was the only thing that could cure her of her symptoms, wouldn't you want her to have that? And I always say, well, no, I wouldn't. I would want my mother to go to a reputable physician, someone who's been to medical school, who could, provide her with the proper drug to treat whatever her ailment was. I wouldn't want my mother going to some fly-by-night operation with, a super questionable person prescribing, God knows what to her that he's grown in, on the side of a mountain in the middle of Mendocino County. I mean, that's not medicine.
The way things are set up here is designed to create a conflict, and we happen to be in the middle of it.
We're committed to doing our job. We'll continue doing our job to the best of our ability, in a compassionate way and a professional way.
You certainly wouldn't ever think of depriving, for instance, a diabetic of insulin, and this is the same kind of thing. For many people, it's life and death. I was in bed. There was this fierce banging on my front door, and I ran down to see what was going on, and I saw the police outside.
On February 12, 2002, the DEA conducted several search warrants in several locations around the Bay Area. One of those search warrants was at the residence of Mr. Ed Rosenthal.
I opened up the door, and they proceeded to secure the house and arrest me, took me away.
We found enough evidence to arrest Mr. Rosenthal. There was a warehouse that was controlled by Mr. Rosenthal, and from that warehouse we seized a number of marijuana plants.
I provided small plants that marijuana patients could grow.
The main mission of the DEA is to target drug distributors.
I think what I was doing served a lot of people. It served the citizens of Oakland, and I'm proud of everything that I did do. I live a good life. I own a publishing company. I have a wife, 2 children. I wouldn't have ever put them in this kind of jeopardy had I thought that what I was doing was against the law. I was named as an officer of the city and deputized specifically to provide marijuana to medical marijuana patients. And I was told by the city's attorney's office that what I was doing was legal and that I was immune from federal prosecution.
There are any number of instances where the federal law and the state law are not absolutely in agreement. In this instance, with marijuana, the federal law is more rigorous than what people are presenting as a state law, and the federal law trumps the state law.
Well, I thought that what I was doing was legal, and actually I was surprised when I was arrested. I was convicted of 3 charges: cultivating marijuana, maintaining a place where marijuana is cultivated, and conspiracy to cultivate marijuana. It was very frustrating because the judge had an agenda. He didn't care really about the law, he just cared about the verdict, and he wanted a guilty verdict.
Ed, we love you, we support you.
I was sentenced to 1 day in prison, time served.
Nobody should serve any time. There should be no time. There should be no criminal penalties at all for marijuana. These laws are doomed.
I think marijuana should be legal for medical purposes because it's a very good medicine, in some cases, the only medicine that works for people. And people should be able to get their medicine.
I feel comfortable that if the federal government was going to prosecute me, that there wouldn't be a jury to convict me. I'm a business person. I know the chief of police, and all these people know that I am a medical user.
It's just 9th graders.
I don't have to take it. Or, no,
I know you don't
everybody but seniors.
Oh.
Right now, I have a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 16-year-old child. All 3 of them have known about my marijuana use. I go to church every Sunday, and they all know because I've been real public about it. So it's great, that I have that kind of support. It wasn't until about the 80s, the early 80s, that I started having problems with my neck. I started having cervical problems, the cervical spine, and I started taking pain medication for that. It turned out that I had a degenerative disc disease. It's been like a progressive disease, and they really can't figure out what's causing it. It's extremely painful condition. Have a lot of difficulty sleeping, and just functioning in general. In 1991, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. I went to Stanford for my treatment. I had surgery. This cancer, it was 3rd stage cancer. It had spread to my lymph system and into my lungs. So I underwent 4 cycles of chemotherapy. Lost all my hair, I lost a lot of weight, I was sick constantly. Doctors at Stanford, the nurses there, and my comrades, the other patients in the clinic, all the consensus was that marijuana was a very effective medication for nausea and pain management. I'm in remission now, but using marijuana for nausea was the most effective drug. After my bout with cancer, it was obvious that marijuana helped me with my pain. It helped me with the anti-nausea, but it also, we noticed that it reduced the amount of pain medication that I had to take. In my situation, my pain is very acute, and I need immediate relief, and smoking marijuana or inhaling it going through your respiratory system is an immediate effect. And it's very important for me to get immediate relief.
Even though you may get a good benefit from it, there's some bad part of it also. Just inhaling the smoke, which has chemicals in it which are harmful to you.
I use marijuana for pain management and for muscle spasms. So to me, just smoking what would be equivalent to, say, 1 joint in a week, because I only just use 1 puff, 2 puffs, and that's it.
This is, in fact, a mood and mind-altering chemical, which does, in fact, change the way in which people feel. But we would think it would be ridiculous to tell people that they should smoke crack for the same conditions that they're smoking marijuana for, because it makes them feel better.
It's every single day of my life that I suffer, and I could either stay at home and watch Oprah, or I could feel better and go out there and do important things. And marijuana helps me do these things. So we indeed had to break the law. I got involved early on in the Prop 215 signature gathering stage, and so I stood out in front of Safeway. I took my petition to the Rotary Club. I got the president of the Rotary Club to sign it. I probably got 50, 60 signatures out of my Rotary Club to put the medical marijuana and put Prop 215 on the ballot. Pretty amazing. It was good for me to speak about the issue from a person that had gone through it. When Proposition 215 passed, we were happy. The family was happy because they knew that I was fighting to change the law. When it passed, I made sure that they understood what I was doing, that marijuana in this house is just like medicine in the medicine cabinet. And just like my children wouldn't go into their friend's medicine cabinet, they know better. They're not to discuss what's in the medicine cabinet either. It's none of anyone's business what takes place in this house. None of my children use drugs. My father, who died, who would have benefited from using marijuana, but felt that it was so important not to break federal law that he suffered needlessly. I think that the only way we're going to change federal law is by people like myself, people that speak up because they have firsthand experience, and that it's just an important thing to do.
Following the raid, and as a result of our lawsuit against the federal government, we were granted a preliminary injunction, which allows us to, again, grow our medical marijuana garden, and that will provide much-needed medicine for our sick and dying members of our collective. And that is just this side of a miracle.